Hello and welcome to Visual Radio. Usually on Thursdays we have Visual Radio Live, and today is November 10th, 2011. But we're renovating the studio in a little while, so this is quite possibly the last show with the equipment that's in the arrangement. It is right there. So there you have it. So what you're watching right now is not Visual Radio Live. Don't call in. We're in the studio at 1:15 in the afternoon with Captain Charles Moore, the author of Plastic Ocean, How a Sea Captain's Chance Discovery Launched a Determined Quest to Save the Oceans. Hello, Captain.
Hello, nice to be here.
How long have you been sailing?
Since I was 5 years old, but I have my captain's license for about 15 years now.
Since you were 5 years old?
Yep.
Did you work with your dad, or?
My father was a sailor and wanted his kids to know salt water, so he took us sailing to remote destinations, and I had it in my blood to get out there and be a sailor. I'm also consider myself a marine mammal. I surf, swim, dive, water ski, you name it. In Southern California we can spend about as much time in the water as a sea lion.
So you're from Southern California?
Yeah.
That's where you live right now?
Yep.
What brings you to the Boston area?
Having a book tour, trying to get the word out about the new quality of the ocean, that it's become a plastic soup, and the beaches are becoming plasticized, and having plastic sand be the new place to lay your towel. We used to get sand by breaking down coral and shells and rocks. Now we're getting it by breaking down our trash. So my message is we got to stop trashing the planet. It's coming back to haunt us.
And this is something that is happening on many different other levels. We hear about greenhouse gases. So there's all sorts of stuff we're doing as humans to really destroy our own environment.
We're affecting planetary systems, and not in a good way.
Not only Earth.
Not only Earth, outer space. We've got so much space junk up there that there's a Kessler hypothesis that if a collision is set off amongst the space debris, it would create a cloud of trash so dense that we wouldn't be able to launch a spacecraft through it. You know, we have a lot of space debris, and it's doubling about every 5 years.
Now, not to digress from the book, but I had a theory about the Mir spacecraft. Had we not been involved in wars, and we got 5 or 6 or 10 countries involved in a mission to get Mir to the moon, instead of trashing that wonderful piece of technology and learning how to take crafts and move our space junk to the moon so that we would have spare parts, a junkyard, if you will, although a very clean junkyard where you could learn how to set stuff down on another planet that's already in space. That's something I don't think they've achieved yet.
Well, the concept of waste is really the problem, that there is going to be this continuing need to find places for our trash is not going to get us out of this mess. We're going to have a zero waste philosophy, viewing everything as a resource, making it part of the economic engine, bringing it back into production. We're leaving the age of extraction and entering the age of reuse. We're not going to get our minerals from the moon. It's not going to pencil out. We need to get our minerals and our resources from the Resource Recovery Park, which we're going to rename the transfer station the Recovery Park. We're going to go where we have that trash truck take our trash, and it's going to be sorted into all these different resources, and all the factories that need steel or aluminum or paper are going to go to the Resource Recovery Park and get local supplies for their raw materials. That's a much better solution than trashing the moon.
Charles, can you explain to us what plastic and styrofoam are and why we're using them instead of biodegradable cardboard?
They're the waste products of the fuel industry. Principally, fuel is what we want out of our petroleum. That's why we get all upset when we don't get enough of it, because we can't get where we're going. We want it to fuel our vehicles. But when polymers first were invented, later after the discovery of fuel from petroleum, they were a boon to the industry. It was like a waste product that was formerly flared off. You know, you see a refinery, you see that pipe with the fire at the end of it. These were ethylene gases, waste gases. Now we can make polyethylene. That's what's principally in this new sand, is our polyethylene waste that hasn't been properly recycled. So we're really embracing a kind of holistic approach to the use of petroleum fuels when we use plastics everywhere. It's giving the petroleum industry a profitable outlet for what formerly were waste gases from the refinery process.
I understand, and I'm not a proponent of marijuana, but I understand that hemp is a better rope than this plastic stuff that they use.
Well, when you say better, you have to define the quality that you mean by better. Hemp will certainly serve a number of purposes, as will sisal, which is made from a kind of a cactus, as will the manila, which is made from a Philippine banana, the abacad. These are natural fibers, and they have a place in marine use. But we also have this problem of rotting, you know, and the persistence of plastic is what gives it its great virtue. Its strength to weight ratio gives it a great virtue, and the longevity of it gives it a great virtue. So mariners have adapted, and fishermen have adapted to synthetic lines and ropes. Nevertheless, there's a downside to that as well, and that is this ghost fishing. These ropes last so long in the ocean that they make these huge, what we call ghost nets, maybe a ton or more of collected nets, lines, and ropes made out of plastic that continue fishing after the fisherman is long gone. It's ghost fishing. And these kill hundreds of thousands of marine mammals every year.
Awful.
All kinds of turtles, porpoises, everything else. So, you know, we have purposes for plastic that are superior to natural fibers in certain applications. But for the privilege of utilizing that superior purpose, we should be more cognizant of what happens when we lose that to the environment. We need to have kind of a philosophy of zero waste in the marine environment too, where everything gets brought back to port. We don't jettison these ropes and nets as if they're nothing. These things are going to last beyond our lifetime, beyond the lifetime of our grandchildren, perhaps half a millennium or more. These things are going to be floating around in the ocean, breaking down, making these little tiny fragments that are now becoming the new beach sand. So we've got to retain our resources, respect our resources, treasure our resources, whether they're natural fibers or plastic, and use them over and over again, remake them into new products.
Perhaps it's a lofty goal, but with 7 billion people now on the planet, and a lot of people looking for jobs, it would be prudent for us to take the resource of people and have them harvesting this plastic and reusing it.
Certainly in the beach environment, at the river mouths, in urban settings, there are trash islands. I didn't discover a trash island, but you can find a trash island at the mouths of urban rivers today. And it is possible to retain that stuff, get some energy out of it, make building blocks out of it, use it for something. But that's not the goal. The goal is not the end of the pipe solution, the solution that happens after we've lost this stuff to the environment. The goal is to sort it and reuse it as soon as you're done with it. It has a place. It has to have an afterlife. It has to have a place to go. It needs an end game. It's not an end game to try to pull this stuff out of the ocean.
But it can be done.
No, not with the fragments. It can only be done when there's large clumps. You know, right now the Japanese tsunami debris is about to attack our most pristine coral reef reserve. The Northwest Hawaiian Islands National Monument is just about to be barraged with houses, boats, telephone poles, all this junk from the Japanese tsunami. It makes a lot of sense for us to act now, mobilize, get military and civilian resources out there, volunteers as well as paid professionals, to protect this longest and most pristine coral reef habitat in the world. But as far as taking, you know, a fine mesh net and skimming trillions of tiny plastic pieces out of the ocean, that wouldn't pencil out.
I was thinking of just these ghost debris things.
Yeah.
Okay, this is fascinating stuff. Now, I understand there are two major plastic pools, for want of a better word, in the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. Is that correct?
Yeah, and there's also one in the Indian Ocean. So we count
Whoa.
five gyres. That's what my colleague Dr. Marcus Erickson started the 5 Gyres Institute. He's now sampled all 5, North and South Atlantic, North and South Pacific, and the Indian Ocean. And these 5 gyres turn out to be just as polluted as the one that I've spent, 10 voyages monitoring. So that's 40% of the world ocean. That's like the equivalent to the land area of the entire world. We're polluting, we're creating a sea fill with our trash in an area equivalent to all the land on Earth by letting this floating, persistent plastic waste populate the world ocean. So it's a very serious deal. It's like creating a virtual plastic sand beach on the surface of the ocean. It's really changing the habitat and in a bad way. So I'm here to tell you, we need to change our attitude towards plastic. We've entered the plastic age and we haven't had the plastic conversation. I'm here to start that conversation.
Well, I like where you're going with it, because when I talk to people, and I had people from this environmental group come on, and they were advocating using reusing glass jugs over and over as your cups and not using plastic water all the time. But you're saying that plastic does have a purpose. If you can put it back in the right place and reuse it.
Yeah.
And then they come back at me with the argument, well, do you know how much gasoline it took to move that plastic jar from...
Well, in terms of weight, plastic outperforms glass.
Right.
However, it's not the best material for our food delivery system because of the leachate.
Right.
We have glass as a very pure kind of a container for a liquid. But my colleague Jorg Ullmann put snails in one of those plastic water bottles and found they made twice as many eggs as his controls. These things leach bioactive compounds. So it may not be the best thing to wrap all our food in. And that's part of the plastic conversation we have to have. Where does it belong in our society? We haven't really delved into that issue.
That's fascinating, because we do use, you take our food for leftovers, we put it in plastic. And it does leach, and we don't even think about it.
We talk about warnings to microwaving food in plastic, but that's just because heat accelerates the process. It's not that the process isn't going on at low temperatures, it's just going on at lower levels. But the latest thinking is that low levels matter. It's not as if the dose always makes the poison, it's the timing that makes the poison. If you get this tiny little bit of, say, an estrogen mimic in a pregnant woman, when that fetus has a window open that says, show me a tiny bit of estrogen and I'm going to make this protein develop this way, that's when you start getting these weird effects. And, when we think about how much of this problematic chemical or that problematic chemical it takes to make a difference, we can't just give a number. We have to say, well, are we talking about a pregnant woman? Are we talking about a fetus? Or are we talking about some old geezers like you and me?
Then the TV dinners we buy that come in plastic and we're microwaving it, we may be putting a toxin in our body.
Oh, there's no question about it that you're putting a toxicant. When we say toxin, what we mean is something that nature makes that's toxic. Toxicant is a compound made by technology, made by our chemists. So these are toxicants. These are chemicals unknown before 1950, most of them, that now we have in our bodies up maybe 100, 150, 200 chemicals never known in nature that are now populating our bodies, and we haven't figured out what that's going to do.
Now, if I take a TV dinner and take it out of the plastic, put it on a plate, that's more beneficial. Does it get some kind of leaching from the freezer, or is it frozen solid and it doesn't?
We're warned against freezing those plastic water bottles. Evidently, that process kind of releases, kind of opens up the pores. Plastic is very porous. It's this polymer that has a lot of interstitial space between the molecules. It's not densely packed like a metal, It has a lot of room. That's why it's lipophilic, oil-loving. You can clean up an oil spill with plastic. That's what these booms are. When we have a Deepwater Horizon or an Exxon Valdez kind of a spill, booms are rushed into place that can separate oil from water. They're made out of plastic, the same plastic that's in your water bottle. The polypropylene cap expanded, acts just like a sponge for oily pollutants. So all these little plastic bits floating around are becoming poison pills. They're absorbing our oily pollutants and transmitting them in the food web. We found 35% of the fish we caught out in the gyre to have ingested plastic. So this is a poison pill, and we're affected in our daily lives by foods wrapped in plastic, but nature is affected in a daily way at every feeding level by mistaking plastic for food. Plastic means infinitely moldable. It can come in any size, color, and shape and texture, and thereby mimic any kind of food. So we're fooling just about every animal in the ocean into eating this stuff, and quite a few land animals as well.
Oh, that's horrifying. So it's far worse than even someone like me who reads more than the average person. I thought there was like 2 pools of plastic in the ocean. You're telling me 5.
Yep.
So even people that are just somewhat educated on it don't even have the whole picture.
It's a stealth kind of compound. It's kind of worked its way into our lives to dominate. I mean, we drive in it, we wear it, we eat out of it. It's become part of our daily life in a kind of stealth way. It's not ever been brought into our consciousness. That's the purpose of my book, Plastic Ocean, is to open up our eyes, open up our minds to having a discussion about plastic.
Wow, and the pictures in here are stunning. You've got turtles, and unfortunately, turtles are such wonderful little beasts. Reptiles.
Omnivorous, very indiscriminate feeders. They'll eat just about, I had a researcher tell me he dropped his sunglasses over when he was trying to tag one and it gobbled him up right away. So it's not as if they're only out for one kind of food. A turtle will eat just about anything.
And so will sharks.
Absolutely. We found, heck, you name it, you found it inside a shark.
And they call the sharks the garbage men of the sea.
Right. Well, there's also a bird that's the vulture of the sea, the albatross. We've got pictures in there of them full of bottle caps, totally full.
Full of bottle caps. That's amazing. So now, sharks are endangered because some crazy people are just taking the fin and throwing the animal back into the water.
It's sad, the brutality we inflict on the ocean's creatures. Fish are so different than other animals. We kind of have this mythology that they're unfeeling, that somehow they don't feel pain. But, you know, top oceanographers feel that that's a false notion, that there is pain felt by the creatures of the sea when they're mutilated in that way.
Microwaving a lobster, I find hideous.
Yeah, a live lobster, really, the message, I think, has to be one of eliminating brutality and cruelty as the status quo. We want to have a world that's beautiful, so we don't want to trash it. We ought to have a world that's peaceful, so we can't be mean. So this has to define the way we do business, and that's going to take a lot of change.
Now I see on your shirt, I'm trying to read this,
Algolita.org is the foundation I founded in 1994 to study and to remediate the marine environment. You know, scientists are always writing papers, but they never take the next step. They never go, well, I found a problem, now I'm going to fix it. This is not what, they just illuminate the problem. My goal in founding the Algolita Marine Research Foundation was to shorten the distance between understanding the problems in the marine environment and doing something about it. And that's what I'm doing with this book. I'm trying to shorten the distance between my discovery of this garbage patch and the effort of us all in society. Since it's non-point source pollution, we're all involved in it. The goal is to get everyone aware that the waste they generate will lead to the ocean, because the ocean is downhill from everywhere. And this plastic is persistent. It's not going away.
I was born in the 50s, and I remember going to the beach in York Beach and looking for sand dollars.
Yep.
And this is just hideous to me, this colorful thing which looks more like a children's toy than something we're walking on. And
yeah, you lay your beach towel down on the southernmost beach in the United States, you're going to be laying it down on plastic. This is from a remote beach, but accessible by car, called Camilo Beach. It's near South Point, near, people have heard about Greensand Beach. This is just a little bit east of Greensand Beach, and this beach is a collector beach. This beach, ancient Hawaiians went to find logs from the Pacific Northwest, to find fishing floats, to play games of fortune teller with these different colored glass balls. Now it's a trash mecca. It gets 10 feet high in junk that floats in the ocean, which is our plastic trash. And then as the action of the waves and the sunlight embrittle that and break it into bits, it becomes part of the sand. Now this new sand is appearing on the beaches of Oregon. It's appearing around the other Pacific islands. It's a phenomenon that needs to be publicized, that we're turning our beaches worldwide into plastic sand.
Now, that beach you're talking about where this came from, is that in Hawaii?
Yeah, it's the southernmost island, what we call the Big Island, where all those volcanoes are, Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea. They kind of have the wind whipping past them and then creating these vortexes that push the stuff back onto land. And this beach is the most polluted of all of them.
Now, are the volcanoes active?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Haven't even stopped being active for decades. They're continuously flowing lava. And I've found a new kind of rock. Geologists don't even know about it yet. It's a conglomerate rock, meaning it has a base structure with other rocks inside of it, and it's made out of plastic. You can find sheets as big as the bed of a pickup truck of melted plastic, because as this lava flows to the sea, it melts the plastic that has washed up onto the beach, makes this new kind of a floating rock that then washes down to Camilo Beach. And I found, as I say, pieces as big as the bed of a pickup truck of plastic substrate. You know, these ghost nets wash up there too. They're big, so when they melt, they make a big hunk of plastic, and then you've got the lava rocks embedded in that. So this is a new, naturally formed geologic expression of our wasteful society that, you know, we're going to have to deal with, we're going to have to live with for centuries.
So the lava mix of plastic and lava, is that dangerous?
Well, you certainly don't want to breathe the fumes coming off of burning plastic. Burning plastic has dioxins. Anything burned in the presence of chlorine will create a dioxin. Well, what is sea salt? It's sodium chloride. It has a very large chlorine content. So we're burning things, having this lava come down to the beach, burning things coated in salt, seawater, creating dioxins, and that stuff wafts all the way around the popular tourist hotels in Kona on the Big Island.
So, I mean, my theory, and you just squashed it, was having people bring the plastic and throw it in the volcano to...
Oh, people want to put it in a helicopter and take it to the volcano and drop it in. I would recommend that technology be accompanied by gas masks for the population nearby.
That bad?
That bad.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So that's out the window. But there is a way to recycle this materials. So maybe that island could have a nice refinery that looks modern and doesn't...
Yeah, I think
deface
probably
the island.
You're talking about pyrolysis, and pyrolysis is a step better than just burning stuff. What it does is it heats the plastic in the absence of oxygen and creates a liquid. And that liquid has the characteristics of low sulfur crude. So I know a recycler in Oregon that has a truck pull in every so often, a tanker, from a refinery that's very happy to get his crude that he uses mixed plastics to make. And that crude is low sulfur. It's better and easier for the refinery to process. And so he's, the refiner of the fuel is very happy to send that truck over whenever he's got a full load. So yes, that will be one of the strategies. But as I say, the labor involved in getting this stuff out of the environment once it's in there is what makes this technology prohibitive. You want to get that mixed plastic at the recycling center, not at the beach.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But because it's at the beach, we have to think of both.
Right.
We have to.
This will be an interim technology to until we stop trashing the ocean. Yeah.
So we can recycle our plastics and do a good job recycling. But we also have to be cognizant of all this stuff that's washing around and seeing if we can grab it, and even at a minimal level, if people just are aware of that and start picking stuff up off the beach, that is helpful.
There's a lot of movements out there like the Take 3 movement. Every time you go to the beach, take 3 pieces of trash with you, recycle them when you get home. There's plenty of folks involved in beach cleanups on Coastal Cleanup Day. The Ocean Conservancy runs a worldwide program to get stuff off the beach, but it's just one day. So, you know, we have the energy, we have the resources, we have the desire to do these things. But I don't want to have people going to the beach just for beach cleanups. I want kids that are brought from, say, an inner city neighborhood for a nice trip to the ocean to commune with the origin of all life, our great, wonderful ocean. I don't want them to be focused on the fact that it's full of trash. You know, I appreciate that kids do come to the beach to clean up trash, but that shouldn't be the only reason we go to the seashore. But until we get the beach clean, it will be. It's just too disgusting. You can't commune with the wonderful ocean that gave life to the land while it's in such a sorry state, filled with our junk.
In science fiction, they always talk about the tipping point. Will mankind be able to get to the next level and be enlightened, or will we cave in by our own, problems?
Yet to be determined. That question is yet to be answered. We haven't seen a directional change. We're globalizing the throwaway society right now. So we're going the wrong direction. And we can't get there by, we can't get where we want to go by globalizing faster, making the primitive tribes of the jungle embrace packaged goods with no infrastructure to take it back is not the answer.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is a steady state economy that handles resources fairly, that has full employment, and a place for everything and everything in its place. I mean, whatever happened to waste not, want not,
Boy, really good, solid, logical positions that I appreciate, and I'm glad you're here today, because this topic is going to open up some eyes. I think people generally, when you educate them, if you can, many people, I think a majority, will take that education and move forward and get hip to the fact that you can't live in a pigsty.
No, you're absolutely right. It's a natural aesthetic. We all appreciate the beauty of nature. Natural, organized, clean, functional. This is ugly. This trash is ugly. It's ugly to Republicans, and it's ugly to Democrats, it's ugly to independents, it's ugly to anarchists. It's got no partisan baggage. This is just a problem for humanity. We're all part of the problem. We're all going to have to be part of the solution.
I'm a big book person, and I collect a lot of books. And what drives me crazy, we're talking about trash getting just disposed of, disposable world. I see libraries pitching hundreds of books, and I'm like, what a waste of throwing them in the trash.
Especially now that English is the global language. Can you think about that? I mean, we give our spare drugs to poor folks in third world countries. Why can't we give our books there? Is it just the shipping cost, the weight of them? Is that why we don't do it?
No, it's the laziness. It's the laziness. We've got plenty of people that need jobs. It's the pure laziness. And I'm not going to say the library, it's not this town. I went up there and I talked to them. I said, don't throw the materials away. Call me. We'll find a way to get it to Goodwill or wherever.
Yeah.
But, we'll do that, Joe. They don't.
Well,
I haven't gotten one phone call from them.
Joe, what you can do is you can talk about the local economy and making it robust, because the solution to a lot of this plastic packaging is just growing your own food, making your own housing, your own clothing, your own energy in the local community. That's the way we're going to get the jobs back. That's the way we're going to have full employment. We're going to have to stop globalizing the stuff we can do for ourselves just because it's a little bit cheaper labor, and give ourselves some work. We can have a regional reliance inventory. We can take an inventory of the things that we make in this region. The people that live around here know where they can get good produce from a good farm. They know where they can get someone that will build them a decent structure. They can access the energy they need through the various producers that have the panels, or that have the wind, or that have the water. These technologies are being modularized and sent abroad to the cheapest labor markets. Let's grab some of those modules before they get on the freighter to go to Sri Lanka and put them to work right here in Winchester.
I'm in total agreement with you. Now, Winchester has an interesting reusable thing, and I'm not well versed on it. Maybe someone can come in here before the end of the program. But it amazes me that we are a disposable society. Chairs, things that are totally usable, no one calls anyone up and says, can you use my computer?
Well, you know, you don't even have to go to the extra effort of making a call-in center for that stuff. All you have to do is turn your transfer station into a resource recovery park. They've done that over in Hawaii. I've seen it. What you do is you put, you know, your semi-truck open for your paper, glass, metal, aluminum, plastic, and you create a kind of a upper road so that these things can back in and the cars stop, open up the trunk, dump out their recyclables into there, or the truck that picks it up at your home, if you have home pickup of your trash, they'll put the sorted stuff in there. And then at the end of this, if you've had a baby and you don't need the crib anymore, you leave it there. If you got a bike that, you know, your son went away to college, he's not going to ride, leave it there. You put that Goodwill or that Salvation Army store right at the end of the resource recovery park. So you've got the TV that still works or whatever it is. You don't have to break it apart and dismantle it. If it's still in good functioning order, it should be available at a very low price to someone who needs it. So this becomes a park. This becomes a place where people go for resources. You know, we used to have these places. We used to have the junkyard that you could go to and get stuff. Then we kind of turned everything into trash and landfilled it. Well, now we got to get back to this, but we can do it a lot more cleanly, we can do it a lot more rationally, and we can make it a part of the new economy, the local economy.
There is a company around here that takes computers, crushes them, and uses them to fill in sidewalks that have holes, and that's like putting plastic into the environment again.
There's a lot of folks that more or less have given up on sorting and doing a good job of recycling, and now are just grinding up everything together and putting it somewhere. There's a company in Tennessee called Wasteaway, W-A-S-T-A-W-A-Y, and they say, bring us all your garbage in the plastic bag, we'll grind it up, we'll sterilize it with high pressure steam, and then you're going to put it back in the soil as a soil amendment, and because it had some food value, it's going to make your plants grow better. It's just the problem is you got this polluting plastic that's going to absorb any kind of herbicides or pesticides and keep them there as part of the mix. So this is like giving up, saying, it's just too doggone hard to do the right thing, so we're going to do a half-baked job.
It's absolutely stunning. What does the book cover?
We cover everything from the discovery of the garbage patch in the middle of the Pacific Ocean to planned obsolescence, why we have lousy products that break so fast, to how to erase our plastic footprint. We call this our plastic footprint. The fact that we have all this plastic now littering the environment, that's humanity's plastic footprint. We talk about how to erase that plastic footprint, and a lot of the emphasis is on local economies, so we don't have to wrap everything in plastic. That's over 50% of fast-track trash are these use once and toss products, you know.
When did they find the plastic soup?
I discovered it in 1997.
You discovered it?
Was a theory. It was theorized by Dr. Ebbesmeyer, the rubber ducky guy that studies how currents move by tracking container spills. And he had a theory that there was this place where the stuff was collecting. But I was the first one to actually go out there and measure it. And we found that actually in 1999 there was 6 pounds of plastic out there for every pound of zooplankton, which is the base of the marine food web. It's what the small fish eat that get eaten by the bigger fish. There's more of these plastic fragments than zooplankton. So in a follow-up study we found 35% of the fish we caught out there had plastic in their stomachs. They're eating the plastic. So this is a big deal. The most common fish in the ocean is now on a plastic diet. This is not nutritive. It's not digestible. It's not giving them the fat stores they need for reproduction. So it's a serious threat to the ocean ecology.
Well, because if one fish goes, then they all domino effect.
Well, yeah, if you get, like right now you're dealing with menhaden here on the Atlantic. They're the base of the food chain here on the Atlantic. If you wipe them out, then you don't get your bluefish, you don't get your tuna, you don't get your swordfish, you know. So you got to protect the base of the marine food chain. My position is we're plasticizing that base of the marine food chain at such a rapid rate that we could cause it to crash, independent of overfishing. This is over-polluting with plastic.
You probably saw the movie 2012, or The Day After Tomorrow. The Day After Tomorrow.
No, I haven't.
Okay, The Day After Tomorrow, they reached the tipping point, of course, and the politicians are all even when it's right in their face, they are still adamant that there's no global warming, there's no this,
Politicians
there's no
are paralyzed. They've been paralyzed by their partisan baggage. They carry this kind of bag on their shoulder that belongs to their party, and it's so heavy that they can't throw it off. They can't unburden themselves and begin to have a rational discussion. It's all spin and has no relevance to the threats we're facing.
Very good way of putting it, paralyzed. They are.
Yeah.
And so their constituents are paralyzed. But then we have these movements out there, and people,
They're
99%.
The hope, just before coming on your show, I took time to stop and visit the Occupy Boston right by the South Station, and I found it to be more organized and better set up than the New York Wall Street operation. And I also found the police officers there to be more interested in it. They felt it was clean enough and organized enough that the police officers could actually sit, and I saw one of them just staring at the posters on the wall, trying to, you know, see where he fit into this whole picture, because we're all part of the 99%, and this horizontal movement, I think, is a real hope for democracy, because democracy is not a top-down type of governance. It's a horizontal type of governance, and this is what they're working on. They're working on figuring out how we can take this paralyzed system and make it work for us, the 99%.
It's almost like the Matrix, where the machines are fighting the people, but here we've got people with money fighting the people without money. And then something in between. It's almost like a kind of weird scale.
Well, you don't have a chance against power. The power is totally awesome. The technology is totally awesome. The ability to monitor and respond is totally awesome. So the 1% have us beat at the level of power. Where they don't have us beat is at the local level of action. We can mobilize on a local level to do the things we need for ourselves and just become independent of them. We can withdraw. We can't beat them back or beat them down, but we can withdraw our support from them. And I think that's the most rational way to deal with the overwhelming power that's against us, is to simply do what we need for ourselves. That's what the folks are doing in these Occupy movements. They've found plenty of food, plenty of medical attention, libraries for their intellectual stimulation. This is the model now for the new society. We started this country by having a series of grievances and having local people do something about it. Now we're having to do that again, but I'm seeing it as a hopeful sign that young people are doing it.
Might have to start a whole new country. We can start on a plastic mountain.
Hopefully not.
When did you get the idea for the book?
It was in a community meeting to build this resource recovery park I talked about on the Big Island of Hawaii. I was a property owner there.
Oh.
And my father was a cattle rancher in Hawaii. And I went to a community meeting to see what this zero waste movement was all about, and I met my co-author there. I didn't know right away we would write a book, but when we got to talking, she was experimenting with plastic trash as a growth media for orchids. She was a very prominent orchid grower. Her husband breeds very fancy orchids, and they care a lot about what they grow those orchids in because they're very sensitive. So they need a sterile media, and they thought, well, plastic was sterile, it won't affect the orchid. But they come to find out certain plastics would kill them. Ground up carpet would kill the orchid. So I was fascinated by that. Wanted to see her operation because I was into what plastics did to things. And so I visited her nursery, and as we were talking and she was finding out about my discovery of this garbage patch, she mentioned it to her husband, and he said, you know, that could be a book. And then we just started talking about it, found out she had an agent. I talked to the agent. They thought we could do it, put it together, and it's a fait accompli now, and it's a good read from what I hear. We got great reviews. Kirkus Reviews, which is a very critical reviewer, gave us good marks. Publishers Weekly gave us good marks, and we're now on a book tour to promote sales of the book, and it's a eye-opener if you haven't been into this world of plastic pollution. It's a good way to start that plastic conversation by reading this book.
And what an interesting combination. You get someone dealing with plastic on land and someone with dealing with plastic and sea.
Yeah.
Nice combo.
It was a very productive relationship.
So Penguin was open to the agent pursuing this line of thought?
Yeah, we got pretty heavily edited because they wanted a book for the general public, and I'm a scientist and she's doing a scientific project, and you know, we had to make it readable. So we had to cut out a lot of the footnotes. But now I understand why they did that. They made a book that the public can really enjoy.
I interview a lot of authors, as you can imagine, and there are these amazing university presses, University of Illinois, University of Kentucky, and they're putting out 500-page books. And I'm thinking, you know, for a book of this kind of depth,
300 pages, yeah.
For a book of this depth, sometimes it's worth a Penguin working with a university press to have the larger with the footnotes available.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the people that are reading this and get excited about it can then go to the master volume.
Yeah, I think there's always the desire, especially among legislators, to have cut and dried facts that are peer reviewed and have been well vetted by the literature and the people in your field, you know, and that's understandable. But you've got to open the door to that discussion.
Yes.
And this is to open the door. Really, you yourself admit that you haven't really been aware of this problem before.
No.
So
I'm doing my everyday life.
Yeah, but your everyday life includes interviewing a lot of different people and reading and knowing what's going on. So, frankly, if you're not aware, then there are many, many more who are also not aware and need to have this kind of door opened.
Absolutely. You said you started at 5 years old on a boat. The late Bobby Hebb wrote the song Sunny. He got on stage at 3 years old. We're in the middle of writing his book with the estate and with an author here in Arlington, just the next town over. The idea is to put out the commercial book and to have the university press book, because there's so much about this guy's life. He's pure Americana. And people are going to want to know about his work with Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and Dr. John. So there'll be the highlights in the book. But I just think that for people who need more information beyond the internet, these university presses serve a good purpose. And then, of course, the college lecture circuit for someone like you.
Yeah, I just spoke at Boston University last evening. We had 80 people. We sold half a case of books, and it was very good. We had Milo Kress there, the 9-year-old who has made a campaign about getting restaurants not to put a straw in every drink unless it's asked for. He wants people to have to request a straw. And he's saved millions of straws from being thrown away as waste. And he's a very articulate young man. So it was very nice to have him speak before me at the Boston University program.
I walk into Brugger's Bagels here or Dunkin' Donuts here, and straws on the floor all the time, and they throw them away. So they're in wrappers, and they just throw them away.
Yeah, if you don't want it, it's waste. Why give it to someone who doesn't want it? Let the person request it.
Well, they have them out, and then people, you know, kids come in and they throw them on the floor, and then they just throw them away without having been used.
Well, we're trying to get the sauce packets behind the counter. We're trying to get the straws behind the counter because we have been trained to waste stuff. It's part of our freedom as Americans. It's part of our rich culture as Americans that we waste. We throw things away routinely.
And you know why we're educated that way? Because people make money.
Absolutely. This is, since President Eisenhower confronted the recession of 1958 in a press conference, he said, Mr. President, how can we get out of this recession? And his answer was, buy. And the interviewer said, buy what? And President Eisenhower said, anything. So this idea that no matter how lousy a product is, how cheap, how wasteful, more of it is a good thing, has taken off since the 1950s, since the end of World War II. That's been our culture, and it's got us to where we are now. That's why I think it's time to revise that and not have growth as a religion in economics. It's unassailable. You can't be elected as a politician if you're not for growth in the economy. But the growth in the economy we're experiencing is a growth in junk.
What's interesting is I'm a collector. You probably figured that out. And Sunday I was at a record collection show because I have a table there, and I know a lot of the dealers, and they have vinyl and CD. Now, for people like us, we treasure it, right? So at the end of the show, some of the dealers are throwing stuff away, and if they're throwing vinyl or CDs away, I take them. I just can't see throwing music away. I think of the $100,000 it took to make that album.
Well, you know, we're exposed now to the sad plight of the hoarder. We see on TV shows people who can't even move in their home because they have so much stuff. I sympathize with these people. These people are right. Everything will be useful again. It's wrong to throw stuff away. These people are truly inspiring to me because they show the deep human emotion that exists in all of us to not be wasteful. You know, they exhibit that, and you feel it. You just don't want to be wasteful. You try to do something about it. But until society has that paradigm in place, we can't do it on an individual basis. There's no individual solution to a social problem. We can't fix this, you and I, by getting more garages and storage bins. We need this vast, you know, free kind of eBay going on around us in a local way so that all these things are becoming useful again. Then we'll have a real, you know, place for that stuff, a place for everything and everything in its place.
Well, certain things need to be respected. Bobby Hebb's music I respect, and we're putting together a box set where it can all be found, but I like that better than this whole new paradigm of, oh, it's online, download it in your headphones and let it stay in cyberspace. And to me, someone who loves something should have that, but we're talking about revering something, not throwing it in the trash.
Well, everything is valuable. Everything took blood, sweat, and tears, but the great thing about a book is you don't have to turn it on a switch, you know? And you can mark your place. You don't have to turn on the Kindle and make sure that you're back where you started from. You've got a bookmark, right? You can start up again right where you left off without turning on a switch.
And wasting energy.
Very handy. Books are very handy.
So Kindles cost energy, and there is something somewhere, a server or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm getting...
Yeah, so I think you're right that we need to give respect and honor to special products that have a special meaning.
Your hard work.
But every piece of junk mail, some printer had to read and make sure that was aligned and registered properly and had the colors matched up and you know, fill the box and deliver them. I mean, it should go back into production. You know, there's no reason why anything that we make should be considered trash. Even the toxics sometimes need to be used in catalyzing reactions in the laboratory or in industry, you know, but they can be handled on a lease basis. If something's toxic, you've got to give all of it back when you're done with it. You can't release it into the environment.
Now here in the Boston area, there are these landfills that they're putting solar energy panels on top of. Have you heard about that?
Well, I know that landfills, because they are quote-unquote problems, try to get positive spin, and they can do that by getting the methane harvested from the landfill. You can do that by making a park or open space on a derelict landfill, or you could put solar panels or windmills on a landfill. All those are just, you know, lipstick on a pig. I mean, these things only have a liner that's going to last 40 years. They're going to start leaking all that toxic material. You can't make one with an infinitely durable liner. These things crack, they break, they deteriorate, they're subject to tremors in the earth, and they leach these harmful chemicals out of them eventually. So they never are the answer. Zero waste is the answer. But certainly interim solutions, the more local energy we can produce, I'm quite all right with decorating the pigs as long as it makes things work better in our society.
Wow, you're so articulate, and every question I throw at you, you've got a really logical answer. I like that. You're aware of alchemy, the old science of turning base metals into gold. Is there a way to take some kind of chemical to turn, not put lipstick on a pig, but a little alchemy, turn the trash into treasure?
I don't see it as the kind of transmutation that turned lead into gold. You know, we can turn lead into gold. It's just that it takes more energy than the gold is worth. You know, and we can harvest this plastic out of the ocean. It would just take more energy than it could give us. I do a calculation in the book, and a fairly efficient boat, more efficient than any boat we have now, dragging a bigger net than any net that's being dragged out there now, it would take a week to make, even at a dense, you know, where there's lots of these ghost nets, it would take a week to harvest enough plastic to power that boat for a day. So it just doesn't pencil out.
Fascinating. Because Patti Smith, the singer, says turning our trash into treasure or recycling our waste, she said this in the 70s, was the #1 aim that we should have as a society.
We've kind of held that thought, but not done the appropriate action to realize the benefit. And that's what we need to do now. We need to draw a line in the sand, say this far and no further. We're not letting that plastic out in the ocean. It's coming back. We're going to either use it for fuel, for some kind of construction project, plastic lumber. Even though that's downcycling, it's better than letting it get out into the environment.
Plastic lumber I've not heard of.
Yeah, Trex is a brand name. It's used a lot in decks. My problem is it's sawdust when you cut it up that's not biodegradable. So you can't burn it. You can't collect the sawdust. You've got all these carpenters out there building these plastic decks, and they're creating plastic pollution in the soil. So there's a lot of issues. The Trex lumber has a place, but it's problematic still. We really need to have that plastic conversation. How are we going to handle these new kinds of plastic building materials?
And instead of solving the problem, they let the problem fester or just seep into
Well, you know, we can make a glass bottle out of a broken glass bottle that we can put liquid in. Food contact, no problem. Same thing with a can, aluminum or steel. We can make another can that we can put food in, no problem, because it heated up so hot that all the paint and all the labeling and all the food residue is totally vaporized. And we get pure metal. All the germs are gone. You can't do that with plastic. It starts to melt around the boiling point of water, 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're never going to be allowed to make a milk bottle out of another milk bottle because you haven't driven the milk fat out of the interstices of these polymers that make up that polyethylene bottle. So you have a law that says food contact is illegal with recycled plastic. So you've got to make a pot for the nursery, or you've got to make this plastic lumber. It's called downcycling. Then when those things break or are no longer functional, then they go to the landfill. They don't have this afterlife. So we really aren't able to do closed loop recycling with plastic except, you know, in a very minor way.
We've only got about 3 minutes left. I live in the city of Medford, which is right across from the town here of Winchester. The mayor there has now given us these big green recycling things and a trash barrel that we're all responsible for. Our household has always been recycling. We always have. But the rest of the city is kind of forced into it now, which is maybe a good thing.
Let's hear it for the mayor. I mean, we've got to start somewhere. We can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You know, we've got to have good ideas stretching us towards this world that I'm describing, which is more perfect, which has complete recycling, has zero waste. So if we can start with the green bin, that's great. Then let's have another bin for the other stuff and another bin for the other stuff, and eventually separate everything into reusable fractions that go straight back into industry.
Captain Charles Moore with Cassandra Phillips. How a sea captain's chance discovery launched a determined quest to save the ocean's plastic ocean. Your website again is?
PlasticoceanTheBook.com.
And it's been a pleasure having you here today on Visual Radio.
Well, it's been my pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Another